Good afternoon. My name is Jen Scherzey, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar, Nursing Informatics and the Foundation of Knowledge. Today, we'll hear from authors Dee McGonigal and Kathleen Mastrian as they discuss what's new in the 4th edition of their textbook, as well as how you can use this textbook to teach nursing informatics in your course as well. Also, as part of the presentation, we're joined by Liam Butler. He's one of our ETCs here at Jones and Bartlett Learning, and he'll conduct a brief product demonstration that will give you an overview of Navigate to Premier Access. This is a digital course that is included free with each new copy of the textbook, and it's also available for purchase separately, too. So at this time, I'd like to welcome both Dee and Kathleen, and I'm going to turn it over to them.
Well, hello, this is Dee McGonigal. I manage the virtual learning experiences at Chamberlain College of Nursing, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Mastrian, and I'm an associate professor and the program coordinator for Penn State University. And I've been teaching nursing informatics for over 15 years. In fact, Dee and I were the folks who first created the very first nursing informatics course at Penn State University. And it has grown to quite the extensive program here, and we now have a nursing informatics certificate that Dee and I also wrote together. So when we created the book, we wanted to, and we'll tell you a little background about this. When Dee and I wrote the original course, it was a nursing elective. Dee, what do you think, the late 90s, mid to late 90s?
Right.
And there was no book. There was no book on the market, nothing that could do what we wanted it to do. And so after struggling to teach the course for a number of years and using pieces of information that we pulled from libraries and the internet and so forth, we finally decided, you know what, maybe we should write our own book. And so that's kind of how the book was born. Dee, you want to tell them a bit about the purpose of the book?
Well, I think really we saw our students struggling with the ability to put the concepts together and to understand what nursing informatics was. And as instructors, you know, you see your students come in and they want to learn the clinical portion. They want to learn the hands-on, and they see informatics sometimes as fluff, depending on where they are in their programs. And a lot of times, if they don't get the basics and get the underpinnings, they don't understand what the purpose of informatics is at that point, because depending, again, where they are, they don't have the hooks to hang any of that knowledge or information on when you give it to them. So we wanted to have a textbook that was from A to Z for nurses who are out practicing who need informatics information, for student nurses who are just learning so they understand what informatics is and how it's being integrated in all settings in nursing. And we also wanted to help nurse educators as well to be able to teach nursing informatics at a higher level. The audience for the textbook really ranges, as I stated, from undergraduate all the way through DNP, PhD, and of course practicing nurses. We want people to understand what informatics is for them, for their setting, how it applies to their patients, what they need to know. Because, you know, informatics is so important today, and people are recognizing it as a specialty, but I still come across nurses who don't know what it is or have never heard of it.
Yeah, and this is Kathy. We, as I mentioned at Penn State, we have a 3-course series that constitutes a nursing informatics certificate. The first course in the series is required of all undergraduate nurses, and then the other 2 are nursing electives, but if a nurse chooses to earn a certificate, then they have the opportunity to take the more advanced courses. And just this year, I developed a separate graduate level course for our DNP students in health informatics because they really wanted one that was a little more robust, more at the graduate level. But interestingly, it covers the entire textbook, and it actually covers, you know, the basics as well as the more advanced concepts for nursing informatics. And the students are quite enthralled with it because they do begin to appreciate the transformative effects of informatics.
The pedagogy of the text, typical introduction, chapter objectives, key terms, but we like to increase the knowledge base and provide research briefs, a little bit of case study to give the students a flavor of how this is integrated, how people are using it, and what they can do, what types of skills and knowledge are necessary. Also the summary, and I know students that I've taught with the nursing informatics text really enjoy the thought-provoking questions, as do educators that I speak with frequently. They really like the way that it gets the students thinking critically about the content of each chapter.
One of the unique features of this text, and this has been true since the very first edition, is the foundation of knowledge model. And we emphasize in the text and throughout the text the fact that nurses are knowledge workers. They work with knowledge, they use knowledge, they create knowledge, they disseminate knowledge, and we talk about organizational knowledge management, and we talk about how informatics can be used to build the body of nursing knowledge. So this is critical, a critical concept, and it's based on our foundation of knowledge model here that you see to the right of the slide. And many times throughout the text, we refer to the foundation of knowledge model in terms of how this fits with the whole, the key concepts of informatics. And new in this edition of the book is really featuring the informatics competencies. Now, we talked about informatics competencies before in the previous editions, but this time we actually featured them, actually paid to have them be a part of our book, be included in the book, and then we took the competencies BS through doctoral level and we mapped them to the table of contents in the instructor manual, because one of the things that reviewers had asked for was to have this mapping done, and so we have provided that in this new edition of the text.
Continuing on with the overview, I think moving from the basic to the complex really helps the student. Also looking at the novice through the innovator level of competency. So we're moving from level 1 all the way to level 4 in nursing informatics. And again, starting with the building blocks, letting them understand computers, a little bit of computer science, information science. Where did all this start? Where did it come from? And how are we as knowledge workers, how are we able to implement this and integrate this and use this in our practice? So we talked about nursing informatics as a specialty. We discussed workflows. We look at how we're going to data mine. How, we have the big data sets. We have all this information. So what do we do with it? How do we get it out? How do we look at trending patterns? How do we find what's going on with our patient as a microcosm against the macrocosm of other patients experiencing the same diseases, entities, and such for evidence-based practice and so forth. Translational research. We look also at the art of caring in technology-laden environments and what that means, because nursing still, in my mind, is an art, and I think we each use our own flavor, our own skills, our knowledge, and our own experiences to flavor the care that when the art of nursing the care we give, we provide.
Yeah, and I'd like to just chime in one more second on that overview slide, and that is that one of the key features of this textbook is that it deals with practice, informatics in practice, it deals with informatics in education, and it deals with informatics in research. And I think that's absolutely critical, because sometimes those other pieces are forgotten about. And Dee mentioned data mining, and certainly for the administrative aspects of nursing practice, data mining is huge, to be able to take a look at what's really going on within that organization. So it's not just data mining for improving patient care, but it's also data mining for improving the organization as a whole. And you'll hear about this concept a lot more in the coming years, and that is that whole idea of the learning healthcare organization. So in the fourth edition, we did update all of the chapters, of course, based on technological advances and changes to the healthcare arena. Now, the interesting part about writing an informatics textbook is that there are pieces of it that are updated almost immediately or need updated almost immediately. So what we try to do is not be so specific that the content is out of date, but we provide the concepts, we provide the background, and so forth, so that the text does remain relevant for a period of time. And one of the things that Dee and I have talked about adding to the website is what's new. So anything new that comes out, we can actually write a small article about it or even link to the news story and have that available. For example, just this past week, I put up a news story in my graduate informatics course because the College of Information Sciences and Technology and the College of Liberal Arts that houses the geography program, those two groups were binding together, and they were creating a mapping tool for use in crowds, so crowdsourcing information in terms of being able to manage disasters or issues that would happen in a crowd. And they practice at Penn State football games and Penn State basketball games, and they were practicing this past weekend at the Penn State Marathon because there are crowds there together. And so what they're doing is creating this mapping software. So I was able to share with my students that, that very practical use of informatics and certainly a multidisciplinary use of informatics.
The other thing that Kathy and I decided to do also was to rely on experts. And we have an expert who will continue to update the Beyond Meaningful Use, since that's a hot topic and impacts everyone. So we will be, throughout the year, they will be updating that content as more and more information comes out and more knowledge is gained.
One of the other things that you'll find different in the fourth edition is it is a full color edition now, and there are lots more illustrations than were in the previous editions. And we did revise the patient safety chapter to really encompass patient engagement and connected health. And in the overview of nursing informatics chapter, we also went back and provided a history of nursing informatics and the NI pioneers as a way of getting students sort of interested in where did this all come from and how did it happen, because it is relatively new if you think about it in terms of nursing as a whole. And we spent a lot more time on the DIKW paradigm as well, because that's something that students don't seem to be able to grasp very easily, and so we spent a lot more time in the textbook explaining that and what it actually means for nursing informatics.
The other thing that we've expanded on a little bit is cloud computing. I think people get confused about what that is, and it seems mysterious to everyone. So we wanted to make that add some clarity around that, make that a little clearer for our students. And security is a huge issue, and we know, especially with bringing your own devices to work and the new tunneling that's being done where they can actually secure an individual's device away and keep it secure from the institution's information. So we wanted to look at some of the different things that are being done in security too, because that's a whole area that we all need to be vested in, not only for our patients' information and well-being, but also for our own, since we're employees, and what information can be accessed from our files. The other thing that we always are in a quest for, of course, is standardized terminology. You know, how do we speak the same language so we can do the research and look at the same data in the same way? Interoperability continues to be an issue in this day and age, where we're still not speaking to one another in some organizations based on the electronics and the systems that they have in place. The reimbursement system that I talked about, we're going to have an expert update us on and keep us updated. That's a whole new changing thing right now that's being implemented and looked at, and everyone's trying to make sense of it. Accountable care organizations and learning healthcare systems are another way to look at what's happening in our whole healthcare delivery system as a whole. So I think the new text has really expanded on some really hot topics as well.
The ancillary materials that we provide, I spent a lot of time this summer updating the instructor manual. Dee did all the presentation slides. She created all of the slides for each chapter, which are absolutely wonderful. So with the package, you actually get PowerPoint slides for every chapter. And in addition to that, you get extensive learning activities. We are really all about active learning and collaborative learning. And so we provide lots of pointers in terms of what you can do, how you can get the content across, because this course is really not a course that lends itself very well, at least in my opinion, to testing. I mean, you can certainly test on basic concepts, and we do provide you with 30 questions per chapter, a comprehensive midterm, and a comprehensive final. But we spend, at least I do in my courses, and I think Dee's the same, I really like to see my students in active learning activities. And so there are lots of suggestions for discussion forums. There are lots of suggestions for learning activities within the ancillary materials. I also looked around and found some internet-based videos that, like for example, there are couple of really good ones on interoperability. And so you'll find links or references to those videos also within the ancillary materials. The competency-based self-assessments are absolutely huge, and this, for me, and when I teach the informatics course, I have the students do a competency-based self-assessment and then set some goals for themselves. And then I can link them with tutorials for things that they might want to do while they're in the course, and so that's very helpful as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we did map the content to the current NI standards. And then just a few weeks ago, I sat down and created a cross map for the 3rd edition table of contents to the 4th edition table of contents, so that if you're updating a course, if you were using the 3rd edition and you're updating a course, this should really create for you a very easy transition. And the reason I wrote it is because I have 4 courses out there that all need to be mapped to the new text beginning for summer as soon as the text is released. Now I'm going to take one just quick second just to brag for a moment. Dee and I are also the authors of a textbook called Teaching with Technology, Tools for the Learning Age. And it was actually an AJN award winner several years ago. It was published, I think, 2010. And so a lot of our ideas about learning activities come from and are showcased, in that book. So if you're interested in a good pedagogical read, you might want to think about that. That's also published by Jones and Bartlett.
I'll take the first slide here, how we use the text. I used it in undergraduate as well as graduate courses. As I said, for novice nurses, nurses who have never heard of informatics, it's great to start with the building blocks and the introduction to nursing informatics so they understand what it is, what it means, and also how to use it. The DIKW pathway, from data, information, knowledge, and hopefully to wisdom. We know, knowledge exists everywhere. We can learn from people, we can learn information, but the wisdom comes from within, and it's how we apply it. So we discuss that in the textbook as well. And I think that's important for people to understand because we process through DIKW constantly, but never realize that we're doing it. And so for us to teach someone else how to do it, we really need to break that down and show them how we're gaining, how we're getting the data. How are we looking at that data and processing it to create information and so forth. Also integrating in all of the areas of nursing, as Kathy mentioned, administration, research, education. Nursing informatics is throughout everything. We know it's throughout all our personal lives as well, but we need to look at that integration for nursing informatics. What does it mean for us? And then the competencies. You know, where are students at when they come in? Not everybody's at the same place. So the competencies and doing a self-assessment really helps them to focus on what they need from the course, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, and this is Kathy. I think I mentioned already that I do use it in 4 different courses, and the first is the Intro to Informatics, and it's just a general overview of informatics, and so we cover, you know, of course, the building blocks, and we cover some of the basic practice applications and so forth. The second course is Ethical Challenges, Managing Private Information, and there are lots of great exercises where students are actually doing case-based analyses of ethics issues related to managing private information. And of course, in that course, we also emphasize the HIPAA regulations, the HITECH Act, and then we focus primarily on chapters 5 and 8 in the new text. And then the third course in the undergraduate level is Advanced Concepts. That's where we talk about nursing informatics roles, data mining, the bioinformatics, the system development lifecycle, organizational knowledge management, and those kinds of more advanced concepts. And then, as I did mention, I just this past summer wrote the comprehensive graduate level health informatics course, which is specific to the DNP students or PhD students, anybody in the master's and graduate level courses, because they really don't have room in the curriculum to take a 3-course series, and so they needed a course that was much more comprehensive. And it's interesting because one assumes that more educated nurses might be more familiar with nursing informatics, but for many of these students, this is the first time they've ever even heard the terminology. So it's really been a great teaching experience for me as well.
And I know the other area that people are really looking to informatics are the administrative tracks as well, because they really want administrators to understand what informatics means, how they can use it not only for their role, but also in making decisions about how they implement it in their institution. Students love it. I love that term, but most of the student feedback that we receive is very positive. They think it's easy to read. They think it's great to follow. They get the concepts. They understand the terms. They really appreciate the definitions because they don't know what some of these terms mean. So they're able to look them up, see what they mean, and then read the chapter with a little bit more and more knowledge, if you will. It also exposes them to new content and concepts. As we said, we in informatics know informatics, but there's still people in nursing who don't understand what it means or have never heard of it, which I know is hard to believe, but that does happen.
Right, and I think that Dee mentioned the glossary and the fact that the students really appreciate the fully defined terms in the glossary, but in addition to that, there is an abbreviations list. As you know, in healthcare, we have a tendency to abbreviate things, and it can be a little confusing. And this is particularly true in informatics, and so we did provide also a comprehensive list of abbreviations. And again, we know that, well, we'll be talking in a second, faculty also love the book because some faculty get thrown in to or get assigned to teach an informatics course and they're not comfortable with the concepts themselves. And so again, we tried to create a comprehensive book and a comprehensive package that faculty could get and wrap their head around and feel comfortable with the learning experiences that are provided for them and for their students.
When we look at the integration of the model, I think it helps people see the relationship of the concepts, to actually visualize them and to internalize them somewhat, and to forward think into that critical thinking zone, if you will. So I really think that helps them, and the reviewers have been very complimentary on the model. So that's exciting to us.
Yeah, and the next 2 slides talk about some of the comments that the reviewers have made about the text and some of the feedback that we received. But please know that if you are using our text and you are asked to review it, we take these very, very seriously, because before we even begin to do a rewrite or an update of the new edition, we take a look very carefully at what the reviewers said. For example, last time they asked for, could you map the concepts for us? Could you map the competencies to the content? Make it a lot more specific, and so we have done that in the ancillary materials.
They also asked for more illustration, and I think that's important that we've really done that this time as well. Even though they thought it was an easy read, they felt they wanted more illustrations for their students. So we've done that.
Yeah, and you can see what some folks said here about it. We're not going to read these to you, but again, I think the strengths, again, are the comprehensiveness of the text and also the comprehensiveness of the ancillary materials that we provide for you as well. I like this comment. This is like the Bible to Introduction of Nursing Informatics. That one sort of made me smile when I read that one. Yeah.
Me too. I like the fact, too, that they felt it was well organized, because Kathy and I work very hard to make it flow and to make it easy for someone to assimilate. So we really do work really hard to make it make sense, if you will, for everyone.
Well, there's a fun story to share from the first edition to the second edition. And that is that when we sat down to begin to work on the second edition, I called Dee and I said, what were we thinking? Why did we put that chapter there? And why didn't we do it somewhere else? And so we really try to make it flow. We really try to make it have some sort of a logical progression, if you will. So hopefully we have accomplished that over the next editions 2, 3, and 4. So one of the things that Jones and Bartlett always asked us to talk about is that how is this text different from other things that are on the market? I think that we have the basics as well as the advanced concepts, and I think also the building blocks, having separate chapters on each of those building blocks, a chapter on nursing science, a chapter on information and information science, a chapter on computer science, and also a chapter on cognitive science. Now, we have had the cognitive science chapter since the very beginning, since the very first edition, and now, just now, you're beginning to see lots more talk about cognitive informatics and cognitive science and why it is so important in the build and design and usability of systems. Now that we're, in the throes of the technology, now that we understand a lot more about how technology can disrupt workflow and so forth, we talk a lot about the cognitive load of the users. And so those building block chapters are critically important for students to wrap their heads around and how that is a critical part of informatics.
And the more complexity with the bioinformatics and the computational informatics aspects as well.
Right. Well, as soon as we talked about personalized medicine, 2 weeks later, everybody's calling it precision medicine. So, but I think our text is one of the first textbooks in informatics, and I think that we may still be the only one that has that comprehensive chapter on computational biology and what that means, bioinformatics and what that means.
And also the comprehensive instructor materials, we hope they help you. We hope they help you teach the course. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We've also added PETA, which is so important, is that pre-brief, the enactment, the debrief, and the assessment. Those are just paramount when you're doing any type of educational activities. So we've added those demonstration assignments. And we also, I think we're beating a dead horse, but we emphasize those nursing competencies. So students understand what level they are at, where they might want to go with their competencies, and what it means to be a nursing informaticist versus, a novice nurse or an innovator. So I think that those are important concepts.
So this was just a fun little exercise here to create a word cloud related to the textbook. Because I thought to myself, now how do they do that anyway? And so, you know what, you Google it. That's how you find out how to do most things. And it was kind of fun to do that. So here's our word cloud for the textbook.
Kathy's the creative one.
Okay, Jen, I think, is Liam ready to talk about Navigate 2?
Yes, he is. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Dee, for that very informative presentation and overview about your new textbook. I know that we have a few questions that have come in via the chat for folks asking for a review copy and when they're able to get the 4th edition. It will be out March 15th, which is very exciting. So at this point, I am going to transfer the presentation over to Liam Butler. He's our educational technology consultant. And we will take a question and answer if you have any questions about the textbook or you want to talk to Dee and Kathleen a little bit more, or if you'd like just a few questions answered about Navigate 2, we're happy to do that. So please, everyone, stay on the line. And I'm going to hand it over to Liam.
Excellent. So since because the 4th edition is not out yet and is not available, what I'm showing you now is what the 3rd edition looks like within Navigate 2. So you can get a sense and a preview of what you're going to get with it. So Navigate 2, with the 4th edition, is a fully functional learning management system, but it can also integrate with Canvas and through Blackboard. And we do have documentation that we can provide to you if you're interested in doing that. Also, as you can see here, every course will come with the content preloaded for you, but you do have the ability to come in here and you can customize your own content or add in your own topics, and you can even very easily rearrange the chapters that you have in the course. So if you don't teach in the order of the book, or there's some chapters you don't teach, you can go ahead and hide them or move them around. If you need to, you can very easily add in your own content just by dragging and dropping content from a folder on your computer right into the course, so it's very customizable. So I'm actually just dragging a couple of files here into Chapter 2, and you can see it's very easily uploads it for you, and you can do multiple files at a time. And you also get a full grade book through this Reports and Grades tab you find up here. Some instructor resources that you're going to get, you will have the ability to add an activity or resource. So over here you can add in assignments. You can also add discussion forums. Those can be graded or ungraded. And then you can also add here where it says Navigate 2 assessments. This is where you can go in and create your, use the midterm, final, all the chapter quizzes that have been, questions that have been created for you. You can create that right through here. And then if you need to, you can also link out to different websites. And you also have the capability of embedding YouTube videos or other videos into the course as well if you want to add them directly into your course. So there's a lot you can do to add into the course as an instructor. You will also find in the teaching tools up here, this is where we're going to add in content like instructor resource guides or instructor manuals that are available, that are also available in our instructor resources outside of the course. But you can come over here and you get a lot of information. Some of them will have additional test bank questions. If we come back to the course, students will get access to content like flashcards and the PowerPoint slides that we've added into the course. They will also have interactive lectures, which aren't in here yet, but in the 4th edition it is something new we're adding into the course. So they can have interactive lectures that come in every chapter as well that students will be able to go through. And those will have some questions for them to do as well. And then if we come over here and click on the ebook, this is an example of what the 4th edition is going to look like. So it just takes a moment for it to load here. As you can see, once the ebook loads up, it looks exactly like the textbook. You can even turn the page like a textbook. Students and instructors will have the capability of adding in notes. So if you want to add notes into the ebook, you can certainly do that. You also have the capability of sharing notes with your students as the lead instructor in the course. So you do have the ability to either create notes for yourself or share them with your students. Students can only come in and create notes for themselves. And then we've also added in animations into the ebook along with some other items. So these animations are narrated, but because the WebEx, I'm not able to share the audio, but you can see down here how long it is. I'll go in full screen so you can kind of get an idea of it. We have added a lot of animations into the ebook for your students to go through. And then if you come down here, you can see the examples of the different animations we have available for the students to watch. And then in addition to the animations that we've added into the ebook, we also have ebook quizzes that will be available in the 4th edition as well, and students will be able to go in and take those ebook quizzes directly in the ebook, and that will report a grade right into the grade book for the students. So that is just a quick preview of Navigate 2, but we do have the ability to do a full webinar with to go in more details of exactly how you can use it.
Great, thanks, Liam. That was a great preview, and I know once the 4th edition of the Navigate 2 Premier Access is released, it's going to be really robust. And just to recap, the interactive lectures and the ebook with the animations is really great features of this product.
This is Dee. I would just like to tell Sarah it was really nice to hear that. She mentioned that she used our 2nd edition when she was a new teacher.
Let me just check on the chat. We'll see if we have a few more people asking any other questions. And Dee, just to echo, I know we have had quite a few instructors who have messaged us separately saying that they have used the previous edition and they can't wait to get their hands on the 4th edition. So they're excited for March 15th. If anyone would like to learn more about the text or request a review copy, you can simply visit the URL on the screen. If you'd like to learn a little bit about Navigate 2 and the product that Liam just showed you, we invite you to go to jblnavigate.com/2. You also see Dee and Kathleen were very gracious in lending you their contact information if you'd like to follow up with them for any reason. So Betty, I'm just going to check back in with you and just see if we have any questions.
Jennifer, this is Dee. Cheryl asked a great question. Are the quizzes importable into Blackboard? And I am not sure of that answer.
Great. Yes, I'm going to turn that over to Liam. And at the same time, Liam, maybe you can also address the Moodle integration as well.
Certainly, I can answer that question. So there's kind of 2 parts to that. We do have what I kind of mentioned before, the integration with Blackboard. And what that actually will do is, in the same thing we have with Canvas, basically, you add in, associate your Navigate 2 course with your Blackboard course so that when you click on the link within Blackboard or Canvas, it will automatically log you and your students into your Navigate 2 course. And then from there, you'll be able to access Navigate 2 and use all the features that we have within the course, and students won't have to log into 2 separate places. So you can certainly do testing that way through Blackboard. Now, in terms of if we have a test bank that could be imported into Blackboard, I'm sure that's something that our editorial staff would be able to look at, and that's something that may be available within the instructor resources, and we can certainly check on that for you. In terms of Moodle, Navigate 2 is based on Moodle, and so I'm certainly sure that's something we can work with you in terms of if we need to get something imported into your course in terms of a test bank. But once again, that's something we'll have to check with editorial on if that's a resource that's going to be created.
Yeah, Jen, this is Kathy. I was just thinking that folks who are currently using the 3rd edition, is there a way that we could provide for them access to that cross map that I did between the tables of contents for the 3rd to the 4th edition?
Yes, absolutely. We could make that available to anyone who's on the call today for sure.
Okay, because I see quite a few people in the chat that have been using the 3rd edition, and it's a huge help to have that cross map all in one place.
Yes, that's also, I think it's referred to also as the transition guide too.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, sure. I can make sure that we send that out to the attendees. Not a problem at all. And I think, Liam, just to ask you another question about integration, we also had a question about integrating with Desire to Learn, D2L.
In terms of the integration, like I mentioned with Blackboard and Canvas, we currently don't have it with D2L. It is something that may be available down the road, but we do have a lot of our instructor resources which are available for you to add into your course. It just would have to be done separately, you know, or in order to access some of the resources like the ebook, students would want to log in directly through jblearning.com to get access to that. One other thing I'll just mention as well is we do have an app for the ebook that students can download and sign into. So that's another way they'll have access to the ebook as well.
Great. Thanks, Liam. I know that we've got a couple questions, too, about the instructor's manual. That's actually a resource that's located within the Navigate 2 platform, just for those of you who asked that question, too. I think that we grabbed just about all of the questions there. I'm just going to turn it over to Dee and Kathy if they want to close out the presentation or give any parting words.
I would just like to thank everyone who attended, and we're very excited about the new edition, and I hope you will be too.
Yeah, this is Kathy. I'll certainly echo those sentiments. I hope that you're excited about the new edition. I know I'm excited to be using it in my courses as well.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Kathleen, for your time today and for conducting such a great presentation for our audience. And Liam, thank you for the Navigate 2 presentation. This concludes our webinar today. I want to thank everyone again for attending, and have a great night and a great rest of the week.